Hello and welcome back to another Bybit live stream. My name is Shadi and I'll be your host for today. And today we'll be going through a brief topic of what are the best tips and tricks to do in WSOT. We have a very special guest with us today and we will introduce him in just a moment. So what is WSOT? It's the World Series of Trading, only on Bybit. We've got a $10 million prize pool and it will start in just a week's time. At the moment, you can sign up for the preheat event, which has started 2 days ago and will last for another week, with a $670,000 prize pool for this preheat event. There's an exclusivity for new users, so make sure you sign up on Bybit today. Deposit 100 USDT and invite a friend to register for WSOT. If you refer friends, you get multiple benefits. So make sure you sign up and refer your friends. And make sure you have the best trading strategy because we do have prize pools for the top P&L in the rankings of WSOT. So without further ado, let us go through our live stream giveaway. Today, you can win a share of 10,000 USDT in spot airdrop to fuel your next trade. So for round one, it will start in just about 15 minutes time. There'll be for 300 existing users, so all users can sign up for this, will receive a 15 USDT spot airdrop. Register for WSOT and trade more than $50,000, and that's also trading volume, within 7 days to be eligible. So make sure you sign up to WSOT to win this prize. And then round two will be exclusively for new users, and they will receive a 10 USDT spot airdrop simply by registering to WSOT and trading 10,000 USDT or more within 7 days to qualify. So without further ado, let's introduce our guests. Today we have the CEO of InSilico, Mr. Flood, and he's also known as the Thinking USDT on X. Flood, it's great to have you here.
Hey, I'm happy to be here. Thank you for having me on in the very important time slot right before the WSOT, which is one of the cooler, if not the most important trading competition that people host in crypto. So I'm excited to be here.
Yeah, that's great. Can you tell users a bit about yourself and your background?
Yeah, of course. I've been in crypto for over 10 years now. It feels pretty crazy to say that. But yeah, I've been in crypto for about 10 years. I've been a trader for all 10 of it. I've seen many different cycles over my career. And, you know, it's been a journey. I think crypto is finally maturing as an asset class. And we're seeing sort of the companies that are consistent and have consistently put in work and taking care of their customers and tried to do good events, taking care of their partners as well, slowly out-compounding the rest of the other, similarly funded companies. And that brings us to companies like Bybit. And, it's a very exciting time where it feels like demand for crypto is reaching an all-time high. We're even seeing it bleed into, legacy finance in the form of these, digital asset treasury companies. And there'll be some very interesting trades and, very interesting things to discuss as we sort of go along.
Yeah, that's very true. I think everyone is excited for this year's bull run that's been taking place at the moment. I think everyone's like consolidating their trades at the moment, but we have you here to kind of give us some tips and tricks on how we can elevate our trading strategy. So I guess let's kind of kick off the topic and go into it. So as we've discussed, what do you think is the current market state of crypto? Where are we at the moment?
So I think we're in the very early innings of expansion in derivative markets in crypto. And I think let me rephrase that. We're at a very interesting time period because I think we've reached a point in crypto where we figured out what works and what doesn't. Right now, the market is very interested in stablecoins and how trading will happen in crypto and where, right? And what I mean by that is the rise of different venues, exchanges reinvesting back into their infrastructure and acquiring customers again, exchanges seeing net new growth, and then also the final I think, acceptance, on the US side of a more regulatorily friendly regime. And as much as people want to admit it or not, the US does still have quite a bit of control over the global financial system, not just the United States one. And we're finally seeing an administration that said, we are going to be crypto friendly, and we are going to encourage innovation, and we're going to be friendly towards crypto companies. And you're actually seeing them deliver on that promise. And so what's happened to the market is, there's been a lot of renewed attention and activity, and that has led to prices go up, which I think benefits most people in crypto. But the most interesting thing is, for the first time in a long time, it feels like regulation across the world is going from maybe partially hostile to neutral to positive, which, that shift doesn't happen overnight. As the government changes and people learn more about crypto, people will draw their own conclusions, but it feels like we're definitely trending in the right direction. And, you're seeing that reflect in asset prices, and you're seeing that reflect in volumes as well. Like, the amount of notional volume traded every day in crypto is much, much higher than it was in, 2022, 23, 24 even. Before the end of the year. So it's really exciting. It's in my opinion, I think it's one of the most interesting times to be in crypto because so much is changing. So I'm really excited about that.
Fantastic. And can you tell us about a little bit about InSilico? Like, what's your company thesis? Why was it built, and why is its importance at the moment? You've been a long-time partner for Bybit at the moment.
Yeah, we definitely have been. I think we're one of the largest affiliates and probably the largest broker on Bybit. People may or may not know that. We've brought hundreds of billions of dollars of trading volume to Bybit. And Bybit's been a fantastic partner throughout our company's almost 5-year life cycle. And so InSilico, for those of you who are not familiar with it, InSilico is an alternative front end that people can use for trading. So you take your Bybit API, you plug it into our platform, and now you get a whole host of order types, additional customizability. And for a lot of people where they may want to trade on multiple venues at once, not just Bybit, it's really the premier application to do so on, because now you have all of your accounts, or if you're managing multiple accounts on Bybit, you can only be signed into one account at once. And people may want to have multiple accounts that perform different functions. We are a completely free platform that enables this type of functionality. And there are certain latency advantages as well, because instead of going through the UI on most exchanges, where during periods of heightened volatility, everybody is clicking the buttons, and response rates go up significantly in terms of the amount of time it takes to get your order through. Not to mention, we see that a lot of users really benefit from better execution, and that is like a non-negotiable. That's not an opinion. That's not me just trying to really sell my company. The reality is, as you trade larger and larger size, you have to be more aware of what the actual order book dynamic is and what liquidity is. And I think, and the way that I've been able to progress a bit faster in my career, maybe compared to some other people that had equal talents, equal capital, was I really took a very serious approach to the way that I executed my trades, even when I had a very small account and I didn't need to. And the reason why is, just like almost anything in life, I think trading is really about discipline and is about understanding every aspect of trading and where you're going to be able to pick up little advantages versus the other average person. And that's what InSilico is really for. I built it for myself. I built it because I wanted to have an advantage over the average trader who didn't have the ability to invest in this sort of software and infrastructure to be able to have better execution. And when you're executing larger size and you're just clicking market buy, you're not being very thoughtful about, hey, is this actually the best price that I'm getting? Maybe I should spread my order out over, a 4-hour period in the form of a TWAP. Maybe I should set limit orders in the bid, on the bid side that will allow me to scale into my order as the market is falling more and more, and be able to do that in a very thoughtful manner that, gives me better execution. So Insilico has a number of different advantages. There's a reason why we're the number one terminal for centralized and derivative exchange trading in the world in crypto. And it's been a pleasure working on this company, because it's something I use every day, right? For my own execution, when you're executing large size, especially on a liquid altcoin contracts, you need to be really careful about not paying too much in fees, but not in the fees from the exchange, in the extra fees you pay because of the actual order book and liquidity, and being aware of that. So yeah, that's it. It's a fantastic business, and we're really thankful to Bybit as a partner, which is why I always want to come on these when possible.
Fantastic. That's good to hear. It's great to hear about your background as well. So speaking of trades, so on WSOT we have of course multiple trading products that users can use. Within them, of course, you can do spot trading, you can do perpetual trading. Now, in your experience, what advice would you give users who are about to trade perpetual, especially perpetual swaps, and what is so special about them?
So perpetual swaps are an innovation in modern finance. It's one of the most important things to actually come out of crypto, and I really don't think the perpetual swap gets enough credit for actually just how good of an instrument it is for traders. And I'll explain why. So in traditional finance, the majority of derivative volume is typically in the form of convex products like options, right? Where you have calls and puts, and you have a number of different strikes and a number of different expiries. And actually, when you're trading, on traditional finance brokerages, liquidity is actually quite fragmented, because for example, if you wanted to short Coinbase stock and you wanted to buy some puts, you have to decide, okay, well, what length of time do I think that Coinbase is going to go down over, and at what strike, right, the actual option price where the option becomes in the money, do I actually want to buy? And the crazy thing about trading options, especially for retail traders, is that you can be right about the direction of the move and even the time frame. But if you're not right about both at the same time, more often than not, you're going to lose money. Additionally, they're much harder to be profitable on, because unfortunately, market makers, that's how they make quite a bit of money, is quoting the spread, and they make money by, having a wider bid-ask spread. It's quite competitive, but in general, this liquidity fragmentation across a number of different instruments, a number of different products in the form of what's called the options chain, is actually really inefficient. And perpetual swaps are a fantastic way to express your positioning without needing to worry about time, duration, and strike. And actually, what perpetual swaps do is they aggregate all of the different positions that people may want to take into one central order book, where it's much more liquid and it's unified. And I don't think people understand, just in my opinion, how tough options trading is, and how almost minus EV it is, minus expected value, meaning there's a very, very high hurdle rate where you have to have a lot of alpha to win in the options game, versus perpetual swaps where, yes, the payoffs may not have as much convexity, but using leverage and given the linearness of the option, it's very, very, it's a very fair game, I would say, compared to options, which at times feel a bit rigged, because again, you have to be right about direction of move, duration, and the implied volatility that the market makers are quoting you at. So perpetual swaps, you don't have to worry about any of that. You just have to pay attention to the funding rate and be right about the direction.
So yeah, just before I ask you a question about options and swaps, the first giveaway will be live in less than a minute. So make sure you click the button that will appear on your screen to claim it, and good luck. So getting into options trading, how would you simplify options trading to users who have never even tried it. I know it's a very, very complicated trading product to use.
Sure.
We have a lot of Learn articles on it, but it'll be great to get it from an expert.
Honestly, I would simplify options trading for people by saying they shouldn't be trading options. They should be trading perpetual swaps. I'm serious.
Okay.
I think that if you had a study, you would be able to look at the percentage of profitable traders on options versus the percentage of profitable traders on perpetual swaps, and it would be night and day. It would be incomparable.
Yeah.
Where perpetual swaps are a much simpler instrument, and when you're still learning trading and you're still trying to figure out what your strategy is, you really want to opt for simplicity, I think, which is, you want to opt for, you want to really optimize the way that you're trading, and you can do that by filtering the type of assets that you trade and also filtering the type of products that you trade, where, when you're trading, you should be looking back at your trade history and you should be saying, wow, I'm very, maybe amazing at trading Ethereum, and, I have a lot of edge because I'm paying attention to what's happening in the digital asset treasury space. I'm watching a lot of the on-chain flows. I understand DeFi really well. So, I'm very comfortable trading Ethereum and Ethereum-like tokens. But then when I go and trade Bitcoin, or I try and trade, Solana, or I try and short, some of these new tokens, and then they go up and then they go down later and I get stopped out or liquidated, you really need to be diligent and particular about, what assets you're trading. And then I think that translates as well into what you choose to trade in it. And I think perps are much easier because you can say, okay, I'm good at trading these assets and I'm trading the most liquid product where I'm paying the least amount in fees. And, that's why the World Series of Trading is really interesting. And it's one of the few things, I'm willing to promote, is because, yeah, there's a chance that users can win on an ROI basis. Also,
True.
It's good for larger accounts and people who, want to maybe take their trading to the next level. They can have a really great outcome. They can trade really well over this period of time, have some relative outperformance, and add a considerable amount to their account balance. So it's actually one of the few things that I think is really cool in terms of, these trading competitions and stuff. So again, when should you be doing the majority of your trading? It's probably during the World Series of Trading, because if you have good outcomes, you're not just going to get your P&L, you're going to get additional prizes and bonuses, and maybe even some publicity if you do well, and you can brag about how well you've done, and you might get noticed and meet some very interesting people who are like, wow, how did you do that? Could you tell me? And they may know other things and be able to help your trading strategy.
That's very, very true, and you're completely right. And I think for most users, what I would recommend is that you can try demo trading with perpetual trades, so that you don't actually have to lose real money. But then you can actually practice and see how your strategy kind of works out using demo trading. But also, to agree with what Flood said, we do have in WSOT so many prize pools for different types of competitions that are happening on the side. So for example, we do have WSOT trading courses where you can actually get a total prize pool of 20,000 USDT from learning how to trade. So it's like a WSOT 2025 masterclass. But yes, so to kind of move on, what lessons would you go back in time to teach yourself? Or what would you kind of tell your younger self to do differently?
That's actually a really easy question to answer for me. I would say be very honest with yourself about what you're good at and what you're not. And a lot of people actually, I think, have this issue, and then it manifests in their trading, where they don't say, wow, I'm very good at scalping and I'm not good at trading long-term positioning. They try and do both because they think because they have aptitude at one certain type of trading or one certain type of analysis that they should be good at everything else. And that's just not true. Every human on earth has a different skill set, a different stat base. And it's your job, if you want to make money from trading, for you to understand what you're good at and what you're bad at. And that's not always a raw skill, a lot of trading comes down to mentality as well. Trading is sort of mastery over self, because there's the one component of, oh, I'm right about the move. I did my homework. I understand the market more. And so that allows me to place a bet. But then it's also, how do you handle that emotionally when you're wrong? And how do you handle that emotionally when you're right? And I think actually a lot of traders are probably closer to being profitable than they might think. The problem is they're not willing to put in the work on themselves personally. And it sounds kind of funny, but I don't think trading is actually that hard if you removed the like human randomness component from it. There's still a lot of people that will never have mastery over themselves and are just not willing to do the homework and are just kind of gambling. And, if you're very thoughtful about the way that you trade and the way that you handle your trading and the way that you implement your trading, you're going to have an advantage over someone that's not. So I would say really get into the specifics of what you're good at and be very honest with yourself, because I think when you're a smart person and you're really interested in finance and trading, it can be appealing to try and be good at everything. But the reality is you'll never be good at everything. You'll be very good at some things and just okay at others. And if you spend time on things you're just okay at, then that's actually very expensive. It can be very expensive in terms of P&L, where we've tried trading strategies and we've tried hiring certain people that had and tried to make them do things that maybe they ended up not being very good at. It leads to poor performance. And then it can also affect you psychologically, where trading does have a huge psychological component. And if you're doing something and it's not working, that can be very tough, because there may be other things you're doing that are working well, but you may have a lack of confidence and stuff like that. So I think it's very important to stick to what you're doing, but always being open and improving yourself in terms of your capability and your capacity to learn. Because if you stop learning and you stop doing the homework, the market's going to humble you. The market's going to humble you quite a bit. And everybody has that experience.
Completely true. Yeah, that's really great advice, actually. And if there's any young traders listening in, make sure that you keep these things in mind, because yes, Flood is right. So the market will humble you if you don't have a great trading strategy. So also, I wanted to ask, what is your advice for young founders, since you're a founder yourself?
Founder is definitely a different surface area of question. Traders, I think you have to be very cynical, right?
Yeah.
You have to have a very realistic view of the world, and you have to say, it's going to be like this. And if I'm wrong by, 5% or 10%, then I'm going to adjust my bet and I'm going to take another look with a fresh perspective. I think founders have to have a delusionally optimistic view of the world and themselves, where they have to say, no, I'm actually the best in the world at this. And even if I'm not, I'm going to work hard enough that I become the best in the world at this. I think traders that get a big ego, it's actually, whenever I meet traders who are very proud of themselves or are talking about their performance, I almost always find out that they experienced a big drawdown later, where it's very common, like pride before the fall. I actually think that founders that are such high conviction on themselves and can articulate why they're going to win, and why they almost feel like they're born to do what they're doing, I think those founders actually end up winning. It's quite opposite ends of the spectrum. I don't think necessarily traders make good founders, and I definitely don't think founders make good traders, because founders have a very tough time, especially good ones, of letting go of their ideas. That's what makes them good at what they do, and that's what allows them to push forward, and have the confidence to bet on themselves and to trade their time for what their passion is. And so I think for founders, the easiest thing to tell them is make sure that your idea is actually good, right? And that's very hard. It's very hard. Make sure that your idea is big enough. A lot of people, I think, try and build something that maybe they're very interested in, and that would help them. And that's a great place to start. You should almost always be working on things that you're interested in if you have the, if you have the ability to do so. But a lot of people in crypto tend to get hyper specialized and then forget that there's this entire broader market segment out there that's just, not really being serviced. That's kind of why we built InSilico, was we said, wow, there's all these large prime brokers, which have all these, like fancy sales teams and all of these fancy products. And then there's the retail, that just trades through the exchange, and, maybe they're more gambling, they're, trading for enjoyment almost. And then there was this entire market segment of people like myself where I just felt underserviced. I was like, I don't want to use a prime broker to trade. I still want to execute the trades myself. And, and that's why we built this product. And so far, I think if anything, we underestimated the demand and the growth and the potential for this product because, we started as a very small team. And, I guess my advice also to founders would be set things up correctly before you actually do any work. And what I mean by that is make sure that, the people that you're partnering with and everything that you do is very clearly laid out in writing. And, you're able to say, all right, you own this percentage and these are your responsibilities. I own this percentage and these are my responsibilities. That way, later down the line, people don't point blame at each other because there should be a high degree of accountability and people understand how much of the product they should own and how much they're responsible for. So, I got very, very lucky with that. My founders are fantastic across everything that I've done for the most part. But, a lot of people are not so lucky. So, be very particular with who you decide to spend your time on, because again, time is the only finite resource that everybody has on earth. And I think in general, people fundamentally undervalue their time. People do not think that their time is as valuable as it is, and it leads them to make some interesting choices. But when you really think about it, when someone is, when reflecting on their life and they say, oh, wow, and you ask them like, oh, what would you do differently? Or what do you want more of at this period of time? And, they're a very successful person and maybe you admire them and they say, oh, I wish I had more time. They don't say, oh, I wish I had more money, or, oh, I wish I bought Bitcoin, at $1, or I wish I did this. They're just saying, I wish I had more time. And it's the only thing that you can't get back and that you can't buy more of. So be really particular, with your time.
Cool. Amazing. It's fantastic. So just to remind users, in 2 minutes, there'll be the second round of red packets, and this is exclusively for new users. So make sure you stay tuned and make sure you click that button as soon as it appears on the screen. Flood, what are your WSOT quick tips? Give us like 5 actionable tips for a WSOT success, like a perfect trading success.
So it's very tough. There is no perfect trading success, but I would say WSOT gives you a good time period to maybe reset and to say, okay, I've been trading a certain way. And you have some time as well before the competition actually starts to say, all right, what has been going well in my trading? What has been going poorly in my trading? Take some time to reflect, especially coming off of this large market top. Maybe some of you may have had drawdowns, especially people with a lot of long biases, and say, all right, what am I going to try and improve during the WSOT? And how will I know that it's been a successful WSOT if I get these things accomplished? And so I think it actually starts from before you even place any trades, it starts from this sort of self-accountability and this sort of learning process and this discipline to say, this is what I want to get done. These are the assets I'm going to trade. This is what I'm going to focus on. And this is going to give me the best chance of success. And then it is about execution and implementation. And I think your goal above all during the WSOT, because it's a limited period of time, is to try new things. I would say that is something that's going to be very interesting because, you can say, all right, I'm resetting my account balance. I'm going to withdraw some of the capital, or I'm going to make a sub account, or, I might even be making a Bybit account for the first time. That would be fantastic. And saying, you know what, I'm going to deposit a set amount of capital there, and I really want to do this with this capital, and I want to execute in a certain way. And, you know, obviously I'm biased, but I think now is a great time to learn how to use new tools. It gives you a good reason to do so, where you can say, okay, in the few days leading up to this, you know, I'm going to spend time getting my information more organized about how and where I'm trading, you know, sort of these ideas, compare Bybit to other sites and say, okay, well, these fees, and I know they just implemented some changes in the fee program. So, you know, take a look, compare that to other exchanges, say, all right, well, Bybit's actually a pretty solid venue, compare liquidity if possible, and then be open to using a new execution software, you know, especially if it's free. A lot of other terminals charge. But yeah, be open to using stuff like InSilico or building your own if you have that capability and that talent. Use the WSOT as a time period to say, oh, wow, you know, I really wish this was simpler, or I really wish this was a bit better. And, you know, if you have the developing talent, you can do that yourself. But yeah, I would say take the WSOT as a chance to sort of improve your trading. And there's a set period and there's a set start and a set end. And you can say, all right, in this time period, I want to get these goals done, and it will be successful if I do get them done. And I think it's nice when you have sort of predefined lengths and periods of time, because a lot of people will make a goal and they'll say, oh, I want to, I don't know, make $1 million. Well, okay, over what time frame? And, you know, what if you make $1 million over 50 years? Like, I don't think that anyone would be super, super impressed. But, and I think money objectives are just generally bad goals. But, you know, you got to have a set time frame, and you have to be able to say, okay, even if I don't do it, at least over the set time frame, if I get a few of the things done on my list, I'll know that it's successful. So yeah, I really think it's good to look at these as sort of mini challenges and ways to keep yourself accountable as a trader.
Fantastic. That's great to hear. Great. So I hope everyone claimed their share of the red packets. We're going to go to the Q&A. We have a few questions from our users in the comment section. One question was, what signals or indicators do you think matter most right now for traders and investors?
I think we're in a momentum market, and I don't know how far we are into, you know, where the potential top will be. And, you know, people say, you know, it's the fifth inning. That's from American baseball, right? Where there are 9 innings. And people will say, you know, oh, we're in the eighth inning, we're in the third, you know, how early are we is essentially the question. And so I look at a lot of indicators trying to say, how early is it, or how exhausted is the market? And I think you can look at a lot of these, you know, digital asset companies and say, well, how many of these are being launched and for what assets? Because when people run out of good things to buy, they're left over with the not so good assets to buy. And then you see digital treasury companies for meme coins and all of this nonsense. And you have to say, okay, well, does that make me think we're early, or does that make me think it's a little bit later in the market cycle? You can look at asset prices as an example, and you can say, all right, well, at this time last year, we were trading at, you know, 50% lower, right? On a lot of these assets. And you can say, okay, well, that feels like we're a little bit later. You know, so I really look for these sort of, there's no magic bullet indicator. I think indicators are sort of just a data point that should feed into your overarching thesis. You should say, you know, I'm bearish over this time frame because of maybe this indicator and then this data point that I'm looking at. And I actually have some sort of pattern recognition, because I remember 2 years ago, we actually put in a very similar high on, you know, Solana, and now it looks like that same pattern on Ethereum. And so I'm going to go try and pattern match, and I'm going to try and see if the same data points that led to that are replicable or are noticeable, and then you implement. And so I think a lot of people try and find shortcuts in life. It's natural as humans. We want to find the magic recipe for success. There's no indicator that's ever going to make you profitable. And I think that's the easiest way to tell if someone's a serious trader or not is, you know, someone says, oh, I created this magic indicator or created this magic formula or something to make money, and it's impossible. It's impossible. We all know it's impossible. Anyone who's been trading for a while understands that. But the reality is, in general, oh, lost you for a second. All good. No, all good, all good. Yeah, the reality is, indicators are helpful and they're useful, but they're not everything. I think there was a funny phrase someone said one time. It was like, okay, when you go hunting, you have hunting dogs with you, right? But you don't give the dog the gun. You know, you don't let the dog shoot. You say, okay, all right, the dog, you know, he sniffs the rabbit or the bird or whatever, and he's gonna point to me where it is, and he's gonna help me find it. But you know, at the end of the day, it's the human that really has to make the decision.
Very true. So the next question is, would you say the traders should increase their risk tolerance during the competition, because the risk to return changes during the competition, and the trader has a chance to get additional return due to the rewards, or stick to the same risk level as usual?
Well, I think this is where multiple accounts is interesting. And I think everyone, so your risk tolerance is very personal, and it's very personalized, and it's individual to everybody. So it's very hard to answer that question in broad strokes. However, I do think the WSOT is a great time, just given the expected value of the prizes, to try different types of trading, like scalping or some other ways to do, you know, to try and do more volume or try and do high ROI things by starting at maybe let's say you're trading with $10,000 and you say, you know what, okay, I'm going to reset my account balance down to 1,000. I'm going to carve out this amount of money, and I'm actually going to try a slightly different trading style and try and, you know, go for the ROI leaderboard or something like that. So I think you always have to be mindful of your risk limits and your risk tolerance, but I think you should be open to different types of trading and use the WSOT as almost a time to experiment, and to say, you know what, like, I might have some drawdowns, I might make some mistakes, but if it goes well and I figure something out, this is the time where my performance has mattered more than any other time while I've been trading. And so, you know, you can look at it from that perspective.
Cool. There is another question, and it's, what gap does in silico fill in the market? I'm not sure what they mean by that, but
well, I know what they mean. You know, Bybit's UI has actually come a long way over the last 4 years since we founded our company. Before, no offense, but most exchange UIs were horrific. They were really bad. They had limited functionality. They had no complex order types. And now that they've caught up, and I like to think that we've accelerated that progression of focus on UIs and seeing UIs as really a big source of edge in the market, and it's been a net benefit for traders generally. So we're happy for that. But, you know, again, Bybit has so much to focus on. Every exchange has so much to focus on. They have to do deposits, withdrawals, security, referrals, rebates. They have, you know, tons of employees, and then they have to do UI. They have to figure about latency and scaling challenges, AWS management. And all we have to focus on at InSilico is making the best trading software. We don't have to care about anything else. And that allows us to be better than any other exchange by providing the best trading software for free in crypto. And so that's the gap that we fill. Is unfortunately, in crypto, you know, exchanges don't get much time off because the market is 24/7. So they don't have time to take their website down like American companies do in trading. Like Robinhood, for example, on the weekend, you can't really place trades. So they're able to make changes and improve and test their software and do all of these things. Bybit doesn't really have that luxury. Neither does almost every other crypto exchange, because we're on a 24/7 standard. So that gives us a lot of time to just focus on execution and providing the best trading experience. And, you know, that's sort of, I think, the gap.
Yeah. Fantastic. That's great to hear. Well, Flood, it's been an absolute pleasure to have you on. And it's been great. And I hope everyone learned a little bit from this live stream. And if you joined late, don't worry. You'll be able to watch the recording of this live stream later on our YouTube channel and also on X. So I encourage everyone to sign up and join WSOT. Please remember, join WSOT. You have a preheat event and there's prizes for everyone. So make sure you trade. And if you need to practice, you can go for demo trading for a few days, and then you can join WSOT when you're at a confident level. And then what else I can say is make sure that you stay tuned, because we have a few live streams in the pipeline. We have our buy real live stream, which is a DEX related live stream tomorrow. We have another live stream with Salsa Tequila on the 25th of August, and then with Dylan on the 29th of August. So we're going to be rolling out a lot of live streams for you with a lot of giveaways for all our users. So make sure you sign up to WSOT today and follow our social media channels, and you'll be able to win some of the prizes over the next few days. Flood, thank you again. I really appreciate your time. We all do. And we hope to see you again.
Yeah, thanks so much. Thanks for having me. And thank you to Bybit for, I think, being the best centralized exchange. I can pretty confidently say that for multiple reasons. Bybit has always taken care of their traders and their partners, and the way that they've handled themselves during their darkest periods of time tells you a lot about a company and its culture and its people. And people forget that, right? And
yeah.
I think you guys actually don't get enough credit for the type of company that you are. So I want to extend a thank you to you guys as well.
Thank you so much. We really appreciate it.
All right. Thanks so much. Thanks for having me.
Thank you. Catch you next time. Bye-bye.